Hey everyone, before we begin, we wanted to let you know that the Fieldmaster podcast is brought to you by Sportsman's Pride Professional Dog Food. If you want to experience the Sportsman's Pride difference in your dog, you can visit sportsmanspride.com and click Shop Now or click the link in the show notes. Use code FIELDMASTER to save 10% off of your first purchase. Now let's start the episode. Call the dogs in because you're listening to the Fieldmaster podcast. All right, everyone. Welcome back to episode number 2 of the Fieldmaster podcast. We finally made it.
That's right.
Woo.
We got through the introduction episode and we're here. We have video now, so we're pretty much a real deal podcast now.
8K, 12K.
Man, we're just
Any resolution you want.
any Ks you want. We'll put it in there.
K9.
K9.
Oh, yeah.
That was good. That was good. Well, hey, before we get started, I just want to thank everyone who listened to the first episode. We got it out there, had a lot of great feedback, including getting video. So we're super excited to be streaming on YouTube now for the episodes, and we are going to get started. All right, so our first guest that we've had on the podcast, dear friend of mine, first time friend of the podcast. We're going to have him back. He doesn't know it yet, but he's already agreed to it. Drew Abel. Welcome, Drew.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. So Drew and I know each other. We've known each other for a little bit now. And I'll tell a fun fact story. Moving to Huntsville, because I have a degree in fisheries and aquaculture. Moving to Huntsville, I wanted a job in kind of the outdoor, world. That's what I was doing in the past. And I applied for a job as a wildlife biologist in the state and found out that they weren't accepting any in this area because it was already filled by Mr. Drew Abel. So in a way,
Beat you to the punch.
in a way, Drew is the reason why I'm here and not being interviewed. I think it worked out.
I
the
like
best.
Drew.
Yeah.
I think it worked. I think it worked out for the best.
It worked out better.
So I'm going to go ahead and give the introduction. So Drew Abel is a wildlife biologist for the state of Alabama in the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Wildlife, and Freshwater Fisheries Wildlife section. Did I get that right?
You got that right. That's a mouthful, but you did it.
Man, I'm telling you what, your business card must be like as long as this table.
Wait till you hear my email address.
Drew's also an avid turkey hunter, outdoorsman, father, husband, and more. So, Drew, once again, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Kind of want to talk to you about your background a little bit.
Yeah.
So, how did you know that you wanted to be a wildlife biologist? Was it kind of like you just one day said, hey, I love being in the outdoors. I don't ever see myself at a desk job. And you were like, I just want to be outdoors all day.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Like growing up, I loved to hunt and fish and everything and just be outside. And as, senior year comes in high school, I really was not sure at all what I wanted to do. So I just took some time and really just interviewed different people that I thought were successful around the area that I knew.
Yep.
And or that my parents knew. And they all kind of told me the same thing: do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And so I'm like, okay, what do I really love to do? And I was be outside and hunt and fish. And so how can I kind of turn that into a job and, kind of start going from there?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of had the similar story with a background in fisheries where I grew up in Florida. I would literally skip class to go fish, and I did the same thing all through college, and that explains a lot about my college career. But so anyways, it kind of was the same thing. Where did you go to school?
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State.
Yep.
All right.
Hail State.
We don't really have to get into that here, but
That's dangerous territory.
that's dangerous territory.
Hey, it is what it is.
That's, you know what? It's okay. So do you feel like going through school really prepared you for being a wildlife biologist, or did you kind of find that once you got into it, you learned a lot more?
I think both. It was probably 50-50. So growing up, my parents have a family farm. I worked on the farm on weekends and things like that. And the farm was strictly managed for wildlife, not cattle farm or anything like that. So I obviously learned a lot there. and then got the opportunity to do a couple internships in college for some timber companies. They really taught me a lot about how to manage timber for wildlife and timber production. And then after college, graduated, go to the state of Kansas, worked out there for a couple months on a waterfowl area out there. And I would say kind of all. I mean, you learn your plant ID in college, and that plays a huge role when you're in the field, understanding what plants you're looking at, and that, hey, I want this plant or don't want this plant because it may or not be beneficial. So, that's something I really learned in college that really, I didn't know before then or after then. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, your parents, they'll own the farm.
Yes.
And that's up in Tennessee.
Yep, that's correct.
Right. Because I know usually when I talk to you throughout the week, if you're not at work, you're usually at the farm.
Yep.
Yeah. And
if my wife will let me go.
Yeah, if she'll let you go. Yeah. Yeah. And tell me, because I know you've got 2 little ones.
Yeah.
So what's it like kind of, you started out managing this land and kind of, growing up, on that farm with like your parents and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be kind of like a surreal moment to have your kids out on the land that like you used to manage and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really the place that I first learned about wildlife management and manipulating habitat or timber or anything like that for wildlife. And that's where I fell in love with it at. And so now I obviously still get to do that and get to introduce that to my son. And then a couple of years, my daughter, when she's old enough. But like this past weekend, we got to take Lincoln on his very first deer hunt.
Yeah.
And it was me and Lincoln and my dad. So it's kind of 3 generations, we all got to sit in the shooting house together and see the big smile. And we got to, luckily, me and my dad both got to shoot a deer.
There we go.
And so he got his first taste, and he's already like, when are we going back?
Yeah.
And so now it's the perspective of, okay, what can I do now? So 15 years from now, he's set up on this place, for it to be the most beneficial that it can be.
Right.
So it's very interesting. It gives you a totally different perspective and mindset when you're outside working and doing that stuff.
So I know for me, at least, when I harvested my first animal, it was a hog down in Florida.
Yeah.
And we had the ritual where, when you're quartering up a hog and stuff, you got to reach down in there and you just smear your face with blood.
Yep.
Did Lincoln get the same thing?
Nope, because he didn't kill it himself.
Oh, man.
Nope, but when he kills one himself, he will get the ritual.
I mean, a lot of people are kind of like, why would you do something like that? I don't know. It's just something that I think kind of every hunter.
Welcome to the family.
That's it. That's it.
That's good. What all kind of animals did you guys have down there to conserve or manage?
Yeah. So we do really most of our management is for deer and turkey, but we also have a small dove field that we manage on the property as well. So we'll do it in like sunflowers or millet or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you from Alabama?
Yeah, born and raised in Huntsville.
That's why I didn't know if you were. Okay. I haven't met many people that are actually from Huntsville.
No.
That is rare.
No, everybody seems like everybody's here is a transplant.
Yeah. I think you're like maybe like the 5th person that's actually from here that I've met. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Sam moved here. It was June, right?
Oh, really?
I moved here in May. I started here in June, but I moved from Houston.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Big
so
difference.
this is like
it's a big difference.
a whole nother ball game for
Yeah.
her. We were talking about the cold snap that's coming this week, and she's like, I don't know what I'm
I've
going to do.
asked like 17 questions. I'm used to the whole city shutting down if it gets like, it's like, like I already know my family back in town, like they're already getting ready to work from home. Like the whole city shuts down because no one knows how to drive in the cold. I mean, I don't. So if it snows, my fiance's going to drive me to work because I will wreck 100%.
Yeah.
It's amazing because it's only about a half a state, north.
Yeah.
Where you were. It's not that far.
Yeah.
North.
Well, it's like in Dallas, it'll snow, but in Houston.
Well, so even in Huntsville,
Wow.
it's so strange, the snow, like way it accumulates here, because I live on the other side of the mountain where we are, and the snow or the mountain will be covered in snow. But then like down here in like downtown and stuff, there could be no snow.
None.
But it looks like a winter wonderland up on Montesano.
Definitely.
You have to take the drone up there just to see how it looks.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
real. For
Well,
real.
and then like the past couple of years, like Birmingham's gotten a lot of snow and Huntsville hasn't.
Yeah.
And they're south of us. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
I know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's really strange. I think this is, I know at least for Florida, it'll be the coldest day since like 1980 something on Christmas Day.
Wow.
And so I know, I think something with Huntsville as well. It's going to be like the
I
coldest.
can't wait because
I know.
every Christmas that I've been in Huntsville, you could go outside in shorts and have a picnic.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's kind of nice, but it's kind of sad too.
I don't think I've ever had
is,
like a
yeah.
true cold Christmas
Yeah.
before.
Well, this is like an unusual cold Christmas.
It is.
Yeah.
This is not. Don't get used to this.
It
'cause
might be
won't-
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I will not get used to it. I can promise you that.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not going to
Before
be
we
throwing the
get
football this week.
Too far along in Drew's questions, I kind of want to back up and go through what that giant long title means in each one of those pieces,
Oh,
so
that's
that
a good
people
point.
understand what is a wildlife biologist and what is it that natural resources, wildlife, freshwater fisheries, like each of those components. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Yeah. So under the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, DCNR is what we refer to that as. You've got wildlife and freshwater fisheries. Okay. And then you also got like state lands. So like our state parks, like Oak Mountain State Park would be under that category there. But within wildlife and freshwater fisheries, you've got 3 different sections. You've got wildlife section, fisheries section, and enforcement section. So that would be like your game wardens would be under enforcement. Fisheries will be your fisheries biologists, take care of our state lakes, Tennessee Valley River, things like that. And then obviously wildlife section, which would be WMAs, and then some other little properties, SOAs that we have.
Okay.
So that's kind of that. As far as like what I do on a daily basis or what a wildlife biologist does, I would say that we have different biologists that do different things. It depends on kind of the area that you're on and the objectives that area has. So like for me, I'm on a waterfowl area, and my main objective is waterfowl, and then after that, small game, whereas we've got other areas that are managed for deer and turkey. Now, we do offer a deer season on my area, but our bread and butter is waterfowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we can get into like day-to-day job duties and stuff like that if we want to.
Yeah.
That's up to y'all.
Well, I mean, I would like to hear it because coming from someone who has that type of background, I mean, when I came out of school, I thought I was going to be doing one thing,
Yeah.
and it'll look completely different. And I know, just talking to you in the past, you know, a lot of it sounds like there's a time and a place definitely for being out in the field and things like that, but you're having to enter in like a lot of numbers, a lot of data to track populations and everything like that. So do you think you could kind of talk about what that looks like a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll just kind of go over day to day. So like my day to day is different, but I would say it's more seasonal than anything. So like spring and summertime, I'm in the field a lot on a tractor, on a sprayer, bulldozer, backhoe, track hoe, some type of heavy machinery, manipulating habitat, improving that habitat, mainly for waterfowl. And after that, we go into the fall. So like then we're starting to prep the land for hunters getting there, making sure all of our parking areas, you know, are up to date. All of our signs on the management area are good. You can drive here, but not here. All of our gates are opened when they need to be opened. Our kiosks. So we have self-service kiosks that people could come up and get maps at, or daily use cards or things like that. So if you're going to hunt on the management area, you have to pull out a daily use card and fill it out every single day that you hunt. And then in the wintertime and kind of early spring is that season where I'm in the office a lot. You know, it's kind of wet usually, so there's not a whole lot that we can do as far as manipulating habitat goes. So I kind of save those days for office days. And then I enter that data, like you were talking about, Colton, those daily use cards. So like I have to go in and like manually look at this card and say, okay, this card's for one person, and they hunted 4 hours, and they hunted rabbits, and they killed 2 rabbits. And I input that into Excel. So that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then,
But it's
you
got
know,
to be vital for understanding
Yeah.
what's coming off and going on the land.
yeah. And so you can also do it on your app, which is, I always tell people to do that on our app, because it's like, I don't have to enter any of that data.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
your job a lot easier.
Yeah.
Hey,
it
could
just-
you just like, enter it in?
Just a
Yeah.
giant QR code
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
the sign up box.
Yeah, but from that, what we do is we can kind of look at different trends through the years. So like, you know, and we just started this app and taking all this data like 5 years ago. We do have some data that was just manually recorded by talking to hunters from years past. And so we can kind of look at some of that stuff and compare, but still in an instance, it's apples and oranges, you know, looking at it. But we look at, okay, you know, 12 years ago, the area averaged killing 8,000 ducks a year. and now we're averaging 6,000 ducks a year over the last 5 years. So what's the difference? You know, is it habitat? Is it something greater on a nationwide scale that's causing migration, differences and things like that? Or is it like a localized population that we're looking at? So we can look at trends.
With like waterfowl, because I noticed like in the past, I guess like decade, like just driving wise, like when you take a road trip, you're used to like insects hitting your windshield and stuff. But I've noticed like in the past like 5 years, it's been like, I can drive to Florida and I won't have like anything on my windshield. So is the insect population like messing with like the waterfowl or anything?
Probably not so much as in waterfowl. Maybe within like your localized like turkey populations.
Okay.
The main reason for that is like waterfowl, they do eat some insects, but that's not their main source of food.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot. Mainly, what's going to impact waterfowl is going to be in what they call the breeding grounds, which is like Canada, South Dakota, North Dakota, the northern part of the U.S. into Canada. That's where all the ducks go every year to breed. If it's really dry, if habitat conditions up there are not good, that's going to be what drives populations really within waterfowl.
That makes sense.
I want to talk about this a little bit in a minute, because I've heard a bunch of stories coming from friends that go to Arkansas to hunt and things like that right now. But one of the things that I want to touch on is the area that you do manage. So it's Swan Creek, WMA.
Yep.
In Swan Creek, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's unique because it's the only WMA in the state that allows you to install waterfowl blinds for the entire season.
That's correct.
So why is it that you can do that at Swan Creek but not the other WMAs?
That's a great question, man. I don't really know, honestly.
Okay.
I thought it was like, I prepared it, so like, thanks for throwing me that. And then he's like, no, I don't have it.
Like, that was just something we let them do, and now you let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. No, they've kind of always let them do it. Now we manage it a little bit, and through the years, we've thrown in more and more rules and regulations and managed it a lot more as waterfowling has become more popular.
Right.
But that's the reason why they do it on this WMA. I'm not really sure.
I wonder if it's kind of like a legacy thing. It always was done that way, and so they just have kept it because it's right on. It's right across the river from Decatur.
Yep.
And so it's right on the river there.
Yep.
So how many acres is it total?
Yeah. So Swan Creek's 8,874, I think.
It's crazy because you don't think about how big it is,
right?
Especially when you're going over the river into Decatur.
Yeah.
I mean, I only know it because, Justin, talking with you, the right side of the train tracks and then just keep going.
Yep. And just keep going.
And it's massive. Yeah. And you've got, it's really unique because it butts right up against the river and things like that. So what kind of challenges do you face with it being, mainly right on the banks of the river, I guess?
Yeah.
And kind of talk to me about how does the selection process where you can install a blind and things like that, especially if you get to keep it there all season.
Right.
I mean, that sounds like a huge deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll kind of give you like a little history of the area.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into the blind stuff. So the area is owned by TVA. So we lease the lands. Our department has a long-term lease agreement on the property. I think we've got like 23 years left on the lease agreement, 22 years, something like that. They usually do it in 30-year increments. And so on the area, on Swan Creek, we have what they call a dewatering unit. So a dewatering unit is a levied area right on the edge of the river that we can flood when we want to and drain it when we want to an extent. Inside that dewatering unit, it captures about 1,200 acres. Once it's all fully flooded at full capacity, we're looking at 1,200 acres of habitat. So it's a lot. It's pretty big.
Yeah. So you got roughly, I think, 7,000 acres then that aren't part of that.
Correct.
Unit.
It's a shooting range over there, right?
Yeah. We've got a shooting range on the WMA and everything. And so within that dewatering unit, we allow 50 blind spots. Okay. Now, the dewatering unit, originally, TVA created it for mosquito control. So they were going to flood it and then treat it, and kill all the larvae and all that stuff. Well, they quickly realized, in the grand scheme of things, we're not making an impact. So then they said, hey, this is kind of a waste of money, so we'll turn around and lease it to the state, and they'll offer some public hunting opportunities. So that's how we got a hold of the property.
Right.
Okay, but then we go into the dewatering unit. That's the area that we've got all of our blinds. So used to, anybody that brought a blind to the management area could put it in the dewatering unit as long as it was 150 yards from another blind. So some years you might have 30 blinds that got hunted, and put in, and other years you might have 100.
Right.
It was literally just, depending upon who wanted to come and who didn't.
Exactly.
And how that worked, you brought your blind down there on a trailer. Everybody put their name in a hat for a drawing. And then when your name got drawn, they handed you a flag. And you drive your truck and your trailer out into the field and you put your flag up. And then you set your blind off the trailer right there. And then they come and make sure nobody's within 150 yards of you. And if there is, then you got to move or they got to move, depending upon who was there second.
Yeah.
And then, so they call that the flag days. Okay, so from there, we go into a 50 blind only drawing. You bring your blind down there. It's kind of the same thing. We have our drawing, but at that point, you have a predetermined spot that you got drawn for. So if your name got pulled first, then you got to pick 1 through 50. Okay, and then they went down the line until all 50 spots were full.
Yeah.
Now, we've knocked it back to 30 blind spots. Okay, and we have an online drawing, so you can put in online on our website. You do have to have all of your hunting licenses and duck stamps, and you have to be fully licensed and be able to go hunt that day to enter the drawing. But now, once you get pulled, you don't get to pick. You get spot. If you get pulled number 3, you get spot number 3.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so if you get spot number 29, if you get drawn 29th, then you get spot number 29.
Got it.
Okay, and then you get to go and you get to put your blind out there on that spot for the year. All of these blinds have to be floating blinds. And we kind of, we leave it up to you as far as how they look, how many people they hold, things like that. But we say, hey, number one, they got to be fully brushed with natural vegetation that comes from off the area. So you can't cut oak trees down on the area or anything like that to camouflage it with. It has to have a compartment that you get out of your boat and hunt in. So it has to have a hunting compartment.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have styrofoam floats on it. And the styrofoam has to be completely wrapped to keep muskrats and beavers and things like that out so that the blind they'll get in there and, a ton of holes in it and then sink it, and it could be dangerous. And like you were saying, Colton, that's your spot for the year. Okay. Now you've got right to that spot up until 30 minutes before shooting time every day. So let's say Colton gets drawn for a spot and you're like, I don't want to go out there and hunt today. Mm-hmm. I've got my boss called me and I got to go to work.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I've tried it once or twice.
Yeah.
So that happens. Well, let's say I'm going to go out there and hunt and I don't have a blind location. So I can go out there and then I see that your blind is not occupied. I can pull right up next to it and I can sit there next to your blind and I can hunt. Or if you leave your blind unlocked, I can get in your blind and I can hunt.
Man, I would imagine that's got to cause some tension.
Man, surprisingly, it does not.
Okay.
Well,
how would they know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could imagine that what I'm picturing in my mind is like, let's say Sam and I were competing hunters, I guess, and I had a blind out there, and Sam knew what my blind was. Well, she knows I'm not going to be there Tuesday morning.
Sabotage.
Go in and hunt my blind. It's like, well, I paid for that blind, and now I'm essentially putting up a blind for other people to use as well. But you're saying that's not really the case.
Yeah, that's not really the case.
Okay, that's good.
And the reason is most of our hunters out there have hunted it for a while. They've hunted the area for a while, and they're extremely respectful.
That's good.
And let's say that you don't show up, but your boss lets you off at 12 o'clock, and you can have an afternoon hunt, right? So you come out there.
You might want to make sure you write that down.
I have to explain theoretical for you.
But and so a hunter comes out there. You're going to go out there at 12 o'clock, right? And you get up to your blind spot, and there's somebody in it or somebody hunting next to it. Most of our guys that hunt out there will be like, "Oh man, it's no big deal. I know you put in the time and effort and money to get this spot here.
Right?
I'll just get up and move." They're extremely respectful. Now, every now and then, you know what I mean? You're going to have that one guy that doesn't do that.
Right.
But that's going to be the case with anything.
Okay.
So
it's a nice, that's a community thing.
Yeah.
Everybody understands type of thing.
It's not like someone's going to go out there and plan to go sit in someone else's blind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about this duck season.
Yeah.
Because we're currently in duck season.
Yep.
And I've heard, and I haven't gone duck hunting yet this year, hoping to go, but I've heard this season's a little unique, and I've heard it's because of a multitude of reasons. And I want to know from a wildlife biologist standpoint, are you seeing the same thing? So one of the things that I've heard is I've got some friends who have gone up to Arkansas, and we've got some ambassadors who have gone up to Arkansas. and they're like, man, we're just not seeing any birds. And it's because of the cold weather patterns that we're getting. It's not really staying warmer like it should be this time of year, and so the ducks really aren't migrating south as much. Are you kind of seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
So North Alabama doesn't get the number of birds that it used to get. Okay, and this is going to be a historical trend for several different reasons, right? When you look at like a bird or any type of animal for that matter, in my opinion, they all what they call imprint on an area, right?
Yep.
So with ducks, obviously they migrate. So they start in Canada and go all the way to Louisiana. Heck, some go to South America, and they'll go a long ways. They're gonna move based upon the day, the daylight, how long the day is, okay,
Yep.
and then they're gonna move based upon weather conditions and habitat conditions. So if the weather's not getting cold, most ducks aren't going to travel farther south, right? So they've got habitat, they've got food where they're at, and they've got decently warm weather. They're not going to leave,
Yeah.
right? So historically through the years, as we've kind of seen these warmer trends the last 15 years, we don't get as many ducks. So when we don't get as many ducks, that's not the same number of birds imprinting on our habitat here in North Alabama. So that's going to start to decrease little by little by little by little every single year.
Right.
And then 15 years, 20 years down the road, you look and it's like, oh man, instead of getting 100,000 ducks, we're getting 50,000 ducks.
Yeah,
Right.
It's an exponential
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
And it has to do with a whole lot of different things. Farming practices have changed a whole lot. So that plays into it because a lot of farmers now are no-tilling. So no-till farming practices leave a lot of crops and food out on the ground. So if that food doesn't get covered up by snow, those ducks aren't going to leave.
Right.
What is no-tilling?
So no-till farming. So used to farmers, when they would plant a crop, they would harvest it, and then after it was harvested, they would go in and then they would till the land up. They would disc everything under, right?
Okay.
So all that corn that was left, those ears of corn that did not get harvested by the harvester, by the corn picker, would just get left on the ground, and then they'd bring the disc, and then once they disced it up, it was back in the ground, so a duck couldn't utilize it.
Okay.
So they would have to travel. Well, now with no-till farming, they're not disking the ground as much. So all that corn stays out there year-round, so the duck can utilize it year-round.
Okay.
So that's been a huge shift in farming practices and creating a lot more habitat. So the only way to get that food gone per se, is to cover it up by something. Well, what's the only thing that really covers it up would be snow.
Right.
We're not seeing as much of that.
Right.
So if it doesn't snow, if it just gets cold, if it just gets 20 degrees or 10 degrees for that matter, yeah, all the water will freeze up, but they'll just go out on the dry ground and feed.
Yeah.
So that's played a big role in, I believe, in us not having as many birds.
Right. Yeah, because I've heard from friends and our ambassadors. We have one that I talked to him yesterday, and I said, "How are you doing?" He's in Arkansas right now, and he's like, "Man, we're just not seeing anything." And he attributes it to just the weather, and a lot of it has to do with the rain as well. Like we went to Gamekeeper Kennels the other day to talk to Bill Gibson, and he was saying the same thing. And he was like, "We just don't have any rain."
Yeah.
And you want with a duck hole
Right.
and stuff, you want that water because you want them to come in and rest and things like that.
Yeah.
They just don't have rain. That's one. And I noticed kind of in the South here. At the time of this recording, we're about to get a cold snap, and the wind chills are going to be in the negatives for North Alabama, and that hasn't happened in 30-something years. And so I almost wonder, how much of the climate change and stuff like that that's coming down from the north and things like that is playing into it. But it sounds like, also the farming practices and things like that are a big portion of it too.
Yeah, definitely a huge portion. That's interesting that you're talking about the drought and the dry weather this year because you're exactly right. When ducks get down here, they want to utilize areas that have water. And if you don't have that water, they're not going to utilize it. They're going to keep going. And so the beginning of the year for us on the management area, we were like the only people that really had water.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's the advantage of going to a management area is that you're flooding it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you got
You're not
1,200
depending
acres
on
that you can flood.
The rain.
Right. So we had water. Nobody else had water. We had decent food this year, not the best that we've ever had, but we had decent habitat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it was very interesting to me because like I've looked at the numbers and kind of compared those numbers and species to numbers and species that we've killed in the past, right? So historically, the past 5 years, we've killed a lot of ringnecks. Well, this year we haven't killed as many ringnecks. We've killed a lot more mallards. And so I'm interested to know, and this is one of those things that we'll never know because it's wildlife, and there's only so much you'll always understand, right?
Yeah.
But I attribute us killing more mallards this year to being the only ones that had habitat. Nobody else had habitat, right? I mean, they come down the Tennessee River, and when we're the only ones that have food and habitat, it's like, okay, that's where we're going to go.
Yeah.
So I find that kind of interesting, you know, that's kind
Yeah.
of something we've seen this year
Right.
that hasn't been historical, you know, for 3 or 4 years, 5 years now.
Yeah, and well, what's interesting too is a lot of people don't get this. I mean, I guess they can keep their own log of what they've killed and stuff like that. And I know there's different apps and stuff out there that you can do it in, but like you have the historical numbers for an entire management area. So it's kind of interesting to see the correlation of what people are saying out in the field who are hunting every day and who are in different states and things like that, plus what you get historically. And so would you say that, you know, right now you're definitely seeing a decrease in the number this year compared to what you have seen historically? Or is it just a different, maybe just it's a different bird, different?
No, I would say like the past couple of years, we've actually probably killed more birds this year compared to the last couple.
Really?
For where we're at into the season.
Got it.
Now, but when you compare numbers now compared to like the mid 80s, drastically down.
Really?
And that's been the thing for the past 4, 5, 6 years.
Okay, so
we just don't get the ducks.
So is it kind of cyclical by decades then? Like every 10 years or 20 years?
That's one of the things. How often have we been managing ducks and keeping good data, like good numbers? You know what I mean? That wasn't important in the 80s.
Right.
You know, they would do it to an extent, but now we're starting to understand, okay, we need this for future generations to look at.
Right.
Okay, what did they do in 2010, 2020?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so really we don't have enough data to go back to see generation to generation. That's kind of my thought is like, hey, you know, because like in my dad's day growing up, they were on what they called a point system with ducks. So now we can kill 6 ducks a day, right? So in the point system, like one duck, like a mallard hen, would be worth 90 points. They could only kill 100 points in a day.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so now we can kill 2 mallard hens in a day, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just cyclical, like you're saying. You know, every 30, 40 years, we're going to have some times where, you know, breeding grounds aren't great and breeding populations tend to go down. And then 15, 20 years later, you know, we hit the other trend of that cycle. You know, we have some really great hatches, really great populations come out of that.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see like the trends
around
throughout the years and stuff and just see like what kind of impacts were happening in that time and around like weather-wise and everything. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Another trend to me that's interesting within that is like hunting and hunting numbers, how many people are hunting. And like because like waterfowling has become so popular the last, well, everybody calls it, you know, the Duck Dynasty days.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you know, that was definitely a role in it. And I think that's great because it, you know, it just brought more people into the sport. But we have a lot more people that are waterfowling now compared to what we had 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's definitely interesting because obviously we're with Sportsman's Pride and Fieldmaster and stuff, we're kind of in that outdoorsman type world and stuff like that. And you almost see it become more of, there's definitely the hunting and the sport side of it, but you see it as like a lifestyle type brand as well. Not necessarily our brands, but you see kind of, you know, everyone's got to have pictures of their truck bed full of ducks, and like you got to have, you know, all the photos and things like that. So it's really interesting. I'd be curious the number of, you know, like looking at the 2 lines of numbers of hunters or number of hunters and then number of ducks killed in the year and stuff as well. Because you know, you almost want to look at as there is a decrease. Do we need to do more awareness for getting people
just
into
like
the sport?
correlation trends?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm big into numbers.
See, that's why I'm like correlation and stats and everything.
I'm like, let's get some data visualized and let's, you know.
I like charts and stuff. Just correlation charts and stuff. It's nice to look at those, and that's why I was like the impacts and everything. So
for sure.
That's cool.
For sure. Ryan, do you want to say something?
Yeah. So I was wondering, you were saying that coming down the Tennessee River, this is the place to stop, would be North Alabama. Are you saying that for this year as well, or just kind of in general over the years?
We're
saying it's going to be not a great year for duck, but would this area be one of the best in our area?
Yes, definitely in North Alabama, like all up and down the Tennessee River is going to be the best place, right? You get farther from the river, duck hunting usually gets worse and worse. So for North Alabama, we've got one of the best spots, right? But when you look at like North Alabama and you compare it to like Arkansas or Missouri, no. People aren't going to come here compared, you know what I mean, to Arkansas. And the reason for that is the Arkansas Delta is right in the center of the largest flyway of ducks. Okay, we are right on the edge of 2 flyways. So we're kind of in the middle of 2 flyways. So we're not in a great flyway zone.
Yeah.
You go east over on the East Coast, they've got a pretty decent flyway. They've got different ducks over there than like Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri flyway has. And yeah, those ducks, intermingle too. But for North Alabama, we've got a really good spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I know we're going to get into dogs here in a second.
That's the next point.
Yeah, well, we like dogs.
That's right.
But in general, with the duck population, with hunters going out there, from a wildlife management perspective, what can hunters do to help ensure that the ducks come back, that the place is taken care of? As they're going out on their rituals each year, is there any best practices they can follow to help with what you do?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like number one, always make sure you're properly licensed, because licensing is how we're funded. So our department doesn't get general tax fund money or anything like that. The only way that we're funded is from licensed dollar sales.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And then what they call the Pittman-Robertson Act. So, and it's an excise tax on all firearms and ammunition. So anytime you go to Cabela's or Larry's or wherever and you buy, a firearm, there's a tax that the federal government takes out of that.
Oh.
Okay. And based upon how many hunting licenses or fishing licenses that the state of Alabama sells, we get so much money from the federal government.
Yeah.
Okay. So the more licenses that we sell, the more money that we can get, because it's a 3-to-1 match. So for every $10 that we get, they give us $30, so we make $40 out of that. So it goes a long ways, when it comes to managing wildlife and fisheries and habitat and lands and all that. But that's how we're funded. So number one, just make sure you're properly licensed. It's not that much, I mean, if you're going to go hunt, you're looking at like
folks that are avid hunters, they're generational. They're doing it, and they don't, if they're having fun with their kids, they want to make sure their kids can have fun with their kids out there. And
that's right.
And having the proper license is going to help fund the ability to keep doing that for generations.
Well, not only that, but they've made the licenses, I think, in my opinion, way simpler as well, because now you can just get like a sportsman's license or something like that, where it's all game, and they have them now where it's like lifetime as well. Yeah. And you pay $500. Really, $500 even if you're hunting, throughout the entire year, that breaks down to a pretty good price. Plus, it's a lifetime license. So, I mean, really, it's like pennies to the dollar if you are that avid into.
I'm not familiar with what license types are available. There's lifetime.
Yeah, I think there is. I think there's lifetime, and then they have a year long for all game.
I'm just used to going to get a fishing license every year
at Walmart and just going down,
or Cabela's,
or Cabela's,
or at the wherever you go to, you go, oh shit, we're gonna go get a fishing license.
Yeah, forgot I needed that.
Or on your phone nowadays.
You can do the Alabama Outdoors app and get it that way. That's how I have all mine. So getting into this is Field Master podcast, so we do like to talk about dogs a lot. So one of the comments that I wanted to get your opinion on is, duck season, obviously you need a dog to go get that duck.
Absolutely.
Unless you are just
a crazy person.
You want to walk out there yourself and get it. But I think having a dog, makes the photos way cooler.
Cats don't work very well for that.
No, I don't think.
Although I think it would be cool to see a cat go out there and do it. Cool, I think that would be fun.
Yeah. I'd pay to watch that.
So is being that you manage, the entire WMA, is there a breed of dog that you see out there more and more?
Oh, so if there was just one breed that I saw the most of, it would definitely be a lab.
Yeah.
Labrador Retriever, number one.
Retriever, yeah.
And I think too, it's going to kind of depend on like the areas that you're hunting. So like my area, the water depth changes a lot. It varies across the unit. So, we may be looking at some areas where a blind location is, it's 12, 14 foot deep. And then other areas, might only be a couple inches deep. So if you're in a really deep area, you might want to have a bigger dog that's stronger, that's swimming through some brush and things like that. Whereas, if you're in a shallower area, like a Boykin Spaniel might be a really good dog to have, which the Boykin breed has really picked up. The last 10 years, we've seen a lot more Boykins. I mean, there's a lot of interest in them. I think they're great dogs. They do a really good job. They're smart, but that would be the one that I've seen a lot of that's up and coming.
Yeah.
Now, as far as like talking about dogs and stuff, if there's one that's underrated for hunting, it's going to be the Golden Retriever.
Oh yeah.
Golden Retriever's a pet, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a house dog. Now, some of the Goldens that I've gotten the opportunity to hunt with, by far some of the best dogs.
Yeah.
Some of the smartest dogs.
Well,
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, another one that I have seen more and more people use is a doodle.
Yes.
And it blows my mind. And you want to know where I think that started? With Cy Robinson. Do you remember that Duck Dynasty
Yeah, it
episode?
started even before that because the doodle is just taking the aspects from a standard poodle. So it's like, why not take the standard poodle
That's
out there?
Yeah.
You're just doing a doodle so you don't say you have a poodle.
You know what I think we should...
That's right.
That's true. That's true.
That's right.
I think we should do an episode and we compare all of them, but we do like the really out there episodes. Like how would a beagle fare?
How would a dachshund do?
Right.
How would a dachshund do? Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Russell Terrier.
I know my wife Gina, if there was a dachshund out there, she would be hunting every single day. She just loves
them,
dachshunds.
huh?
To your point about golden is that a great hunting dog can also be a fantastic family dog.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And most of the folks that we work with, and just an example, up in Scattergun Lodge in North Dakota and Pierre, their dogs are off season are in the house with kids and families.
Yeah.
And then on season, they're bloodthirsty, savages. And
Yeah.
they're getting
Loyal
them
through and
pheasants.
through.
Yeah, and that's just they say that's the best life for a dog is to
Yeah.
be just 100% on and then be with family.
Well, it's funny. I've got a buddy, Graham, who he has a spaniel.
Okay.
And he pitches in the majors, but during hunting season, that dog is on 24/7. I mean, he's begging at the door to go out hunting.
Yeah.
And then you've got the when he's out pitching, it's just his wife's dog at home, and it's like the best of both worlds. Well, what I was gonna say, talking about scattergun and stuff up there, it's funny. Some of the other ambassadors that we have, they train a lot of retrievers and short hair pointers and things like that. And they have these giant dogs and stuff. And then you walk into their house and they've got like little
Little
dachshunds, or they've got smaller
Always
dogs.
have a little lap dog.
Yeah. It's so funny because he'll be like, sick of this dog, and he's just petting it. It's recliner. It's funny. One of the things though, I kind of want to get your opinion on is because you have dogs as well.
Yeah.
We just went and saw Bill Gibson, and the popularity of, what was it, Sam? The British Retrievers?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are growing in popularity too.
English lab.
Yeah, they're a lot shorter in the leg and stuff, but they almost have the full body of a lab.
Right.
Do you see more and more British labs coming in, or is it still a lot of American labs?
No, a lot of British dogs now.
Yeah.
And you got to think, like on my management area, most blinds that you hunt, you're going to have a boat.
Right.
Okay. And then by the time you get 2 or 3 guys in a boat, they've got all their guns, they've got all their shells, their decoys, all that stuff. It's pretty weighed down.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So most of these guys are looking at, okay, what can I do to get a smaller dog?
Yeah.
I want a dog that's still going to be really good, but I don't want the weight. Most American dogs are 80 to 100 pounds, whereas most English dogs, I'd probably say like 50 to 70.
Yeah.
Or British, whatever you want to call them. And so, I definitely see that trend going that direction. They want something smaller, more compact, but still has, the same amount of muscle per se.
Yeah, they're still fast.
They're
They take
quick,
off. They take
yeah.
off. I saw them run. They take off real quick.
Well, and I think that's what they were kind of realizing out at Gamekeeper is they're like, hey, a lot of people want these dogs, and it's not necessarily just because it's the Mossy Oak brand and things like that, but it's this style of dog that's short in the leg, but it's still got speed and it still has that retriever ability.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that that's already kind of taken place out actually in the field too.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, the Boykins, man, they're like taking off exponentially. It seems like
It
everybody
is.
wants the Boykin because they're smaller than the British dog, right? I mean, you're looking at probably the largest one being around 50 pounds, average 30 to 40.
Yep.
And so they make extremely good pets. Like
Yeah.
that's the one thing about a Boykin is they're so loyal dogs.
Yeah.
And really good around kids and things like that. So to me, that's one of the reasons that they've taken off so much. They're even smaller than that British, line, but they're still really good family dogs, like you were talking about earlier. They hunt, and then boom, they're inside loafing. Eating some pizza, laying on the couch.
My buddy Graham has a rule with his spaniel that if they're out hunting and he misses one, he gets a piece of Spam. And I think that's cool to have like some kind of ritual with like your dog and stuff. I don't know that we should.
I'm sure the dog appreciates it too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, the dog just secretly starts hoping that
right.
yes.
It's
Yeah,
like miss,
I agree with that because even when you're out pheasant hunting and you miss and you got to call your dog back, no bird, no bird. It's the saddest thing.
They're just
in the
pouting
world.
on the way.
They're booking it and they're like, no,
Right.
come on back.
Sorry. You're like, dang,
You just
didn't do
ruined
your
their whole
part?
day.
Right.
We've got an ambassador, Brandon Thompson, down in Florida, and he's got a lab named Odie, and he sent me a video the other day, and it was like 6 a.m. or something, and I was like, "What is he doing?" He sent me a video. He woke up late to go hunting, and his dog was pouting at the front door because they thought they were going. They loaded everything up the night before, and the dog was all ready to go and was just pouting. They know.
Poor
Oh,
kid.
yeah.
I know. That's
they
what I'm
do.
saying.
It's like Christmas
kid.
morning. He's waiting. He's like, get
Exactly.
up.
Yeah. Just starts pouncing on
Right.
you in bed. Yeah. Cool. Well,
So we talk about what kind of dogs you have?
Yeah, so we've got
Tell us about 'em.
American dogs and Boykins. So my wife is allergic to dogs, so we don't have any at our house.
Okay.
But my dad, he's a vet and loves to breed and raise dogs. And so through the years, we've had like Jack Russell Terriers, we've had English Pointers, Labs, Boykins. There's no telling what else. I think so. This is kind of interesting. The least amount of dogs we ever had growing up when I was a kid was 17.
Wow.
Oh my God.
wow. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Well, for
Sounds like a
background,
good life though.
for background too, your dad
Yeah.
owned a vet.
Yep.
Owned
Yeah.
a vet
Okay.
here in town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sold it.
Yeah.
And now he's the busiest retired vet that I know. 'Cause
Absolutely.
he still does house calls and everything like
Yeah.
that. Every time I talk to him, he's somewhere else. He's offered to come out and see Oreo and stuff time
Yeah.
and time again.
He loves making house calls. And that's one of the things I was talking to him. I was like, you need to cut back. Like, he was like, why? I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm still able to do it. And I'm like,
Exactly.
That's
yeah,
nice,
you
though.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can do it as I want to. I make my own schedule. If I want to go to the farm or if I want to go to Arkansas, I'll just, hey,
He
I'm
does.
sorry.
Yeah.
He
I'm
does.
booked.
Yeah.
And I know there's times
Life.
talking to you where you just like, yeah, Dad said he wasn't going out to the farm today, and just show me a picture, and he's out in the deer stand.
Absolutely.
I think that's the retired life that I want.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know what I'm going to do today, and then I
Yeah.
go on a 3-day hunting trip to
Yeah.
Arkansas. So, all right, Drew. Well, thank you for sitting down with us on the Fieldmaster podcast. Anything you want to shout out? Any seasons coming up?
Yeah. So we're not quite halfway through waterfowl season. So if you're interested in that, absolutely get out there. Like we were talking about, making sure you're properly licensed. OutdoorAlabama.com. You can get everything there. A lot of people are like really concerned about making sure they have the right licenses. And we always tell people, call us. We're here to help. We want you to make sure that you're comfortable in the field, and that you have a good time. So just call us if you're not sure about that. So you can call us at our district office here at 256-353-2634, or get on the website there and check that out. So
Or I'll give you guys Drew's personal phone number. It's all right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the second episode of the Fieldmaster podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media at sportsmans_pride on Instagram. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find us where all podcasts are found by looking us up on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music. Ask Alexa to play the Fieldmaster podcast. It does work. I tried it.
Nice.
nice.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the second episode of the Fieldmaster podcast, and we will see you guys next time.